Do you know that some of the scariest horror movies are based on real events? These terrifying stories aren't just the product of Hollywood's imagination, they happen to real people. And the fear they experienced was all too real. From haunted houses plagued by dark spirits to chilling possessions that pushed people to the edge of insanity. These events left a mark so terrifying that they inspired some of the most iconic horror films of the modern era. Stick around as we dive into the horrifying true stories behind movies like The Conjuring, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and more. These tales will chill you to the bone. 1. The Enfield Poltergeist, 1977. It all started innocently enough for the Hodgson family. They lived in a simple, quiet home in Enfield, North London. But in 1977, their lives would change forever. It began with strange noises, bumps in the night, tapping sounds from the walls, and unexplained knocks. At first, Peggy Hodgson, the mother, thought it was her children playing tricks. But soon it became clear that something darker, something unexplainable, was lurking in their home. The poltergeist targeted Peggy's daughter, 11-year-old Janet. It wasn't long before furniture began moving on its own, chairs sliding across the floor, and beds shaking violently in the middle of the night. Janet was even seen levitating off her bed by her siblings and neighbors. But the scariest part? Janet started speaking in a deep, terrifying voice, a voice that didn't belong to her. It claimed to be the spirit of an old man, angry and vengeful, who had died in the house. This spirit seemed to have taken over Janet's body, tormenting her and her family at every turn. The events were so terrifying that they drew the attention of the press and paranormal investigators, including Ed and Lorraine Warren. The Warrens believed the Hodgson house was under attack by a demonic presence, something ancient and evil. The haunting grew so intense that it began to take a toll on everyone who entered the house. Janet was thrown across rooms, objects flew through the air, and the walls echoed with eerie voices. But even with all this, skeptics tried to explain the haunting away. They said Janet was faking the events, that the family was seeking attention. However, with over 30 witnesses, including police officers, journalists, and neighbors who saw things they couldn't explain, the truth was hard to deny. This was no hoax. This was a real, living nightmare. In 2016, The Conjuring 2 brought the Enfield Poltergeist back to life. Directed by James Wan, the film captured the fear, the helplessness, and the terror that the Hodgson family endured. The ghostly figure of the old man, the dark atmosphere, and the relentless supernatural attacks in the movie had audiences on the edge of their seats. The Conjuring universe became a powerhouse in modern horror, and The Conjuring 2 is still considered one of the scariest films of the decade. 2. The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel, 1975 to 1976. The Exorcism of Emily Rose, 2005. Anneliese Michel was a young, devout Catholic woman from Germany. She lived a quiet life. But in 1975, she began experiencing horrifying symptoms. She saw terrifying visions of demonic faces, heard disturbing voices that wouldn't stop, and soon her body began to twist and contort in unnatural ways. Doctors diagnosed her with epilepsy, but Anneliese and her family believed that something much darker was at play. They believed she was possessed by demons. Anneliese's behavior grew more violent and erratic. She would scream for hours, tear her clothes off, eat insects, and drink her own urine. Her body became impossibly strong, and she would perform horrifyingly unnatural movements. She claimed that she was being controlled by multiple demonic forces, including Lucifer himself. The family, desperate for help, turned to the church for an exorcism. What followed was a gruesome battle for Anneliese's soul. 2 priests were assigned to perform the exorcisms, and over the course of 10 months, Anneliese endured 67 exorcism sessions. During these rituals, she would speak in guttural voices, scream in agony, and writhe on the ground as the priests attempted to drive the demons out. The exorcisms were brutal, and Anneliese was left weak and emaciated. She stopped eating, convinced the demons were stopping her from nourishing her body. In July 1976, Anneliese Michel died of malnutrition and dehydration. She was only 23 years old. Her parents and the priests were charged with negligent homicide as they had chosen exorcism over medical treatment. But to this day, many believe that Anneliese was truly possessed and that something evil claimed her life. This horrifying true story inspired the 2005 film The Exorcism of Emily Rose. The movie tells the terrifying tale of a young woman battling demonic forces, blending supernatural horror with courtroom drama. The exorcism scenes are disturbing and visceral, with Emily's body twisting in ways that seem impossible, her voice changing into something not of this world. The Exorcism of Emily Rose is a chilling portrayal of what happens when the line between the spiritual and the physical is blurred, and it left audiences questioning whether they believe in possession or not. 3. The Perron Family Haunting, 1970s. The Conjuring, 2013. When the Perron family moved into a large farmhouse in Rhode Island in the early 1970s, they thought they had found their dream home. But that dream quickly turned into a nightmare. The house, built in the 18th century, held dark secrets, and soon after moving in, the Perrons began to experience strange and terrifying events. At first it was just little things, a door opening on its own, strange noises in the middle of the night. But soon, the paranormal activity grew violent. Spirits roamed the house, some friendly, but one in particular was malevolent. This dark entity, believed to be the ghost of Bathsheba Sherman, a woman accused of witchcraft in the 19th century, began to torment the family, especially the mother, Carolyn Perron. Bathsheba's spirit was vicious. Carolyn would wake up with strange bruises on her body, feeling as though someone had slapped or pinched her in her sleep. The entity would tug on her hair, whisper terrible things in her ear, and eventually it even tried to possess her. The Perron family lived in constant fear, never knowing when Bathsheba would strike next. They were prisoners in their own home, trapped by a spirit that wanted nothing more than to harm them. Desperate for help, the Perrons contacted Ed and Lorraine Warren, the famous paranormal investigators. The Warrens came to the house and confirmed that the Perrons were living in a house haunted by multiple spirits, with Bathsheba being the most dangerous. They performed various rituals to try and cleanse the house, but the Perrons continued to suffer under Bathsheba's cruel attacks for nearly a decade before finally leaving the home. The Perron family's terrifying ordeal was brought to the screen in 2013 with The Conjuring. Directed by James Wan, the film became a modern horror classic, terrifying audiences with its dark atmosphere, jump scares, and disturbing portrayal of the Warrens' investigation. The haunting imagery of Bathsheba and the fear she inflicted on the Perrons was so intense that it sparked a franchise, bringing more of the Warrens' paranormal cases to life in future films. 4. The Bell Witch Haunting 1817 to 1821, An American Haunting 2005. In the early 19th century, the Bell family of Adams, Tennessee, became the victims of one of the most infamous hauntings in American history, the Bell Witch. It all began in 1817, when John Bell, the father of the family, started experiencing strange phenomena on their farm. Mysterious noises filled the house, including disembodied voices, scratching sounds, and chains being dragged across the floor. But this was only the beginning of the terror. The Bell Witch, as the entity came to be known, was a violent, malevolent spirit that targeted the Bell family, particularly John Bell and his daughter Betsy. The witch would pull Betsy's hair, slap her, and leave bruises and scratches on her body. The family couldn't escape the witch's wrath. Even neighbors and visitors to the Bell home experienced the terrifying presence, hearing the witch's eerie voice and feeling her violent touch. The haunting grew worse over time, with the witch becoming more aggressive. She seemed to have a personal vendetta against John Bell, and as the months went on, John's health began to deteriorate. He grew weaker and weaker, and the witch's taunting voice would echo through the house, vowing to kill him. In 1820, John Bell was found dead, and many believed that the Bell Witch had poisoned him, finally making good on her threat. The Bell Witch haunting was one of the first well-documented cases of a violent poltergeist in the US, and it left a lasting legacy of fear. The tale was adapted into the 2005 film An American Haunting, which brought the terror of the Bell Witch to modern audiences. The movie focuses on the relentless attacks by the witch and the psychological torment the Bell family endured. The eerie atmosphere and disturbing visuals make An American Haunting a chilling portrayal of one of America's most famous hauntings. The Explorer. Signing off.